Hey, yeah, hello everybody, and welcome to week 6 of the course. We're just sort of chugging right along. I just want to say, as you'll probably hear me say often here with these brief check-ins every week, I think those of you who are, you know, taking the time to dig around on the net and contribute to the online discussion board, um, I think you see that. Yeah, I hope that you're getting something out of that. I hope that you're trying to see some kind of a little bit broader perspective, or just sort of how pervasive in some ways, and how often indigenous people are talked about, investigated, reported upon, studied, um, um, a part of everyday sort of social media, or how we sort of gain and access information today, digital technology. And I think you see, and we're going to move towards this maybe a little bit as we move later on in this novel, but also in the course itself, and how it's a new form of media, but also how Native people have, I think, have harnessed it in very unique and genuine ways, so that they have gained greater exposure to their own political interest and cultural interest and production of culture within spread and disseminated across the globe in terms of digital technology. And I think we should think about that as we move forward, because it does become a part of Almanac of the Dead. So that's that. But yeah, I mean, just congratulations to everybody. But backing up about the discussions, I guess I would say that it'd be great sometimes if you guys begin to dig around in other people's posts. And so if you just if you make a post, just and maybe comment upon others. I think I have it set up to where, as long as you make any sort of a post, that you'll receive credit for that. So we can begin to have conversations about stuff. I think now would be a good time in the semester for us to begin doing that. And so I'll keep reminding us of that every week with these quick check-ins. I want to try to keep this somewhat short, so let's go ahead and get to. You'll see me post up for this week too. Within this announcement, there'll be a brief sort of an introduction to Marxism, because I think Marxism is one of those things that people talk about often and don't always have a good basic sort of understanding of what it is. And so I posted a quick sort of YouTube video that gives you sort of a theory of Marxist theory of it's a conflict theory that sort of tries to that explains the social the social and of course economic relationships of people across the globe, right? It's and I include it because you'll see that the novel turns, especially towards the readings for this week, towards a reading of Angelita La Escapia, the central character, beginning on around page 311 or so. I would ask you to maybe concentrate on that section of the novel. I got a few notes here, I'll take a look at it. But I mean, really, and how she sort of turns it on its head, and so that she, there's a long discussion, anyway, of indigeneity's relationship to Marxism. And I think it's a very important discussion that the book engages in, because I think it wants, at least the novel anyway, wants to delineate or prescribe exactly what Marxism's role is to the indigenous characters in the book. And there seems to be a central point of conflict. There's simultaneously an admiration for Marxist theory of the world within the indigenous community, but also a distinct rejection of Marxism when it comes to international communism, as opposed to local control of land and ownership, which is the central tenet that the quote unquote Marxist revolutionaries in the novel will draw back from any form of internationalism until all indigenous lands are returned to their rightful owners. There's a quote on page 326. I'll look it up real quick here, because I have the book in front of me. You can see my dog in the background. He's being very good today. His name is R.T. Robert Thomas. He's named after my great-granddaddy Max. I found him in the house where my father grew up. He was a lonesome little pup, but he's a good guy. So I'm trying to get to page 326. There's a famous line. I think I have it marked. Yeah, that was that. The Indians couldn't care less about international Marxism. All they wanted was to retake their land from the white man. If we back up before that quote, Monardo wouldn't last long once the Indians got. He asked, okay, he asked, he asked Alegria to accompany him. Monardo wouldn't last long once and this is Bartolomeo speaking. The Indians were hopeless. Bartolomeo was returning to Mexico City. He asked Alegria to accompany him. Monardo wouldn't last long once the Indians got started. All this time, the Indians had been misleading Bartolomeo and the others. The Indians couldn't care less about international Marxism. All they wanted was to retake their land from the white man. So there's this whole sort of, going on within the region where the book is here, where we've shifted into a Central American focus. And so indigeneity and the geopolitics of the region, Marxist resistance to more conservative, fascist, right-wing governments has been going on in this part of the world since colonialism. Cuba is here in the character of Bartolomeo, who's playing back against that. So there's this central rejection. The main thing I want you to walk away from that is a central rejection in some ways of international Marxism in favor of a localized communal system of reciprocity. I would probably point you back towards the story of Two Old Women to see the element of communitivism, this idea of living in community and sharing of resources amongst the members of that community and tribe, as opposed to others, right? There's that central trend, but there's a certain rejection of that within an international context until all the land is returned. And a central figure in making that happen is this character of Alegria, right? Monardo's second wife, the much younger wife. And I would probably turn you, there'll also be, if you look in the announcement for this week, there'll be a link to something on the character of La Malinche, who is a central character in Mexican indigenous identity. She was a go-between, a central sort of figure who went between both, much like the character of Alegria in this novel. She moves between both Monardo, who is this indigenous sense, but also the international Marxist, who is Bartolomeo. But then she also has this role in sort of higher class Mexican society. So she's this central figure who's who everyone sort of revolves around her, and it's very gendered, right? She's and so this character is very gendered, and so you should maybe think about this as you think about your readings for this week. Is why is it located? Why is that central figure located in a woman? Why do we do this? This is not the first time in any story's ever done this. I guess I would offer up Eve as one of those. Eve is one of the earliest characters of literature, right, of this woman who performs this role, right? And Alegria kind of takes on that sort of role as Eve a little bit. So you can think about approaching it at that point. And then, I mean, also within the novel is just this idea of just the utter corruption, right, of what is expected to be every society that we look at, every governmental structure that we look at, every community structure that we look at so far. The entire world has been sort of morally corrupt in some way. What does that mean? Right? Think about that as you read through this week, right? Because these levels of corruption just keep getting more and more grotesque. Like they're almost to this point beyond the absurd. Like if I read one more line about about an engorged penis or something, right? I mean, it's just over the top all the time. Why is this novel written, in such grotesque and absurd terms about all that is immoral about us? Its vision of the world is one that is deeply sort of flawed. And I guess I would want you to pay attention to one sort of central line. I know I wrote it down somewhere. It's on page 336. Let me find it real quick. I'm sorry, I should have marked the page. And I'll cut you loose to get on about your word for the week. But let's see what they say. 336. I should have marked it. There's a line that's about midway down. The sentence starts with, the Europeans who came had been humans. Okay, let's back up and read this. It's the first full paragraph under blood madness. And the paragraph reads, blood was powerful and therefore dangerous. Some said human beings should not see or smell fresh blood too often, or they might be overtaken by frightening appetites. Usually Tacho said little, but on gruesome subjects, Tacho was like all the other Indians, or even Monardo's own grandfather, who relished stories about accidents and death. Monardo wanted to take advantage of Tacho's mood to ask certain questions. were there human sacrifices anymore? Not by the Indians, Tacho said, but the human sacrifices had not just been the Mexican tribes. The Europeans who came had been human sacrificers too. Human sacrificers were part of the world network of destroyers who fed off of energy released by destruction. When Ardo laughed out loud at Tacho, Tacho believed all that tribal mumbo jumbo. So this line that human sacrifices were part of the world network of destroyers, capital D, who fed off the energy released by destruction. Pay attention to that line, because this novel is essentially, if nothing else, this world of complete moral chaos, right? And somewhere within this world of great moral chaos, indigeneity is trying to find a way to identify itself. And it's an extreme struggle, right? To define it in any way that's not sort of grotesque and absurd, okay? All right, we'll pick up with that going forward. You'll read up into about, part 4 of the book, so page 463. Any questions, as always, just reach out and talk to me, and we'll talk to you next week. All right, thanks, bye.